So all right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Into the Mind. This is the first time we're doing this on a Monday afternoon. I've got with me Caroline Kane. I've got Bobby, aka the Bank Whisperer, on the line. And I'm excited about today's conversation because what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about the conversation that, quite frankly, I don't think most of us got from our parents or from our families growing up. I know Caroline and I were having this conversation a few days ago that there are so many things that we have to learn in entrepreneurship that no one taught us. We didn't have that adult, we didn't have that guide. And it was almost like these conversations were taboo when it came to money, when it came to creating goals and setting goals. And so, what I want to do is I want to demystify these conversations because entrepreneurship, quite frankly, is, in my opinion, and Bobby and Caroline, I want to hear your opinions on this. In my opinion, entrepreneurship is just personal development on steroids. It is forced personal development. You have no choice but to work on yourself, to work on your mind, to work on who you are as an individual in order to progress at this game. And I couldn't think of two better people to have this conversation with than Caroline and Bobby because I got to spend time with them. Obviously I live with Caroline, and I got to spend time with Bobby last week in Utah, which was absolutely amazing. And both of these individuals are, in my opinion, what it means. They're the epitome of good, strong leaders, good, strong entrepreneurs, and people who have taken the time to work on themselves over, in Bobby's case, decades, in Caroline's case, I would say probably close to a decade, about almost there. And to be able to produce results, not just for themselves, but the people around them. So Caroline, Bobby, welcome onto the show. I also need to adjust it so people have Caroline's name under me.
There you go. I'll let you fix it. Thank you for having us on here, Marlon. One of the cool things for everybody, if you don't know myself or Bobby, I don't know how, because we're always interacting with you, Marlon. But the cool thing is Bobby has more experience than us. If you didn't know this, on Thursdays I do a live called Millionaire Lunch, where I get to talk to somebody, and Bobby is a millionaire, and you're a self-made millionaire. And a lot of us did not get a ton of financial advice from our parents. I think my parents, sheltered us a little bit. They wanted us to be kids more, and I didn't really understand the value of a dollar and how to invest well and what to be doing with my time. So, Bobby, thank you for taking time away from your family. And I know Bobby and I are partners in business, and we do something together. So we were talking about some deals before we went live. But Bobby, I think, is more so we're probably going to be interviewing him and asking him questions because we got to spend last week with him. Before we get started, though, Bobby, I just kept asking Marlon this because you said it so well when we did our little high performance planner writing. What does it mean to be an adult, in your opinion?
My wife used that phrase to one of my sons who wanted to be an adult and make adult decisions. And she said, look, an adult is someone who gives more than they take, right? Children, you picture them at the checkout stand, stomp on their feet. I want the Snickers bar. The adult is the one you invite to dinner, and they bring, potluck, they bring food with them and actually contribute. They're giving more than they take. We had all our children over for dinner last night. My wife said, this is a lot of work, cooking the roast, and you got 8, 9, 10 people here. We ought to consider some of you married couples bringing dinner to dinner, and both of them are very good. They are adults and they're very independent. We teach our children to be independent, and both of them said absolutely. But it's giving more than you take, and that's kind of a way we can measure our in relationships, what we're giving, what we're taking from that relationship.
And I love that because I think I told you this last week when you said that. You said it Monday night while we were snowshoeing through the mountains, and it reverberated in my head over and over and over. It's one of those, for me now, I know it's your wife's credit, but I heard it from you first. So it's going to be a Bobbyism in my head probably for the rest of my life. And I'm going to end up teaching that to anyone that I ever come into contact with, that being an adult is giving more than you take. And so, one of the things I want to ask you, because you've been accomplished within the world of entrepreneurship, you've been able to build business, sell business, you've invested in real estate, you've invested over the last several decades now. And a part of that is what we refer to as active income work. And then there's this idea of passive income work, which you refer to more as residual income, which I love, and we'll talk about that. But I find so many people when they come to me and they need help, they're all trying to jump into the passive income bucket immediately before ever going through the active income trenches. And I personally believe active income, you want to go out and develop your active income skill set. You want to be able to add value to the marketplace and to make yourself a person that's unreplaceable. And I want to get your take on that. Like, how much of that do you believe a person needs to adopt, like this hard work? Because we often hear it's almost like an argument of hard work versus smart work. And people say, I don't want to work hard, I want to work smart. What's your take on that, if you don't mind?
It's interesting. It'll take me a couple minutes to dissect this, but I think this will set the stage for your entire the dialogue that we have today, and the mindset associated with what people call entrepreneurialism. I hear a lot of people say, I want to do foreclosures. I want to do foreclosures. And as I ask additional follow-up questions, do you like to rehab? Do you have the funding to rehab? Do you like helping homeowners exit homes? And what I end up finding is they want to buy something cheap and sell it for more and make money. And foreclosures, that's a vehicle. My journey started similar to yours. We were born, we come to earth, spirit unites with the body. We're all in diapers. We're all crapping our pants, right? And then we start to grow, and there's nurture in nature and a lot of socioeconomic factors that dictate growth. But I will say it doesn't define and determine who we are. We get 12 months out of the year. Every month is a chapter of a book, and we are the authors of that book. So I'm a big believer in that. As a very young man, I had a job at 9 years old, and people say, well, how do you avoid the child labor laws? Well, we were pressing flowers for the neighbor. They would take us up in the mountains. We'd pick flowers. We'd bring them home, cardboard blotter. We'd press them. And then they ended up in these beautiful glass settings that our neighbor would sell for a lot of money. So child labor laws were probably being abused there. But I made a ton of money because it was based on speed. I learned, even though I started in a diaper with all the other kids that we worked with in the neighborhood, if I worked faster than them, I made more money. We would get paid by the page. So I utilized that to buy a few things and sell. And you get into baseball cards. Every kid does that, or a Cabbage Patch cards or Garbage Pail or whatever they are, but started buying and selling those. And I'm like, this is fun. I can buy a card for this and I can sell it to somebody for this. So it was your negotiation skills. Fast forward 8th grade, our family moved from Utah to Washington, and there were no jobs. When you come from a family of 8, you've got to hustle. You gotta get out there and work. And so that was the catalyst. If you're on the call listening to this, what is the fire that needs to be lit under your butt? Mine was, I want to have things. I want to have a little bit more than my siblings have, and anything, because my parents weren't necessarily able to provide that. So I had to go figure out a way to bring an income to buy those things that I wanted, and signed up for the wrestling team by myself in Washington, 8th grader. And I got a paper route, and the guy said, hey, we're in the middle of a contest right now. If you want, you can join it. Probably, you'll win a couple prizes here and there. And my mindset, again, Marlon, you get this. This is a mindset. I don't want to be like everybody else. So I said, let's go door knock. As an 8th grader, knocking on doors, and said, hello, I'm from the most popular paper in Snohomish County. And I would sell these starts to the newspaper. I ended up winning a trip to Disneyland, Universal Studios, won the contest. As a little boy, I've got my plaque. I still have it to this day. And I was in the newspaper, and my parents didn't even know any of this. And I said, you know what? A family of 8, we're not going to Disneyland. What's your cash offer to the Daily Herald? And they ended up paying $750. So I was hustling, at that age, and got the cash. My parents were like, good boy, good job. Now, my dad's an educator. He's got a PhD. And the one thing that they always said was, get your education, get your education. I didn't like the formal education route. I knew I could make a living. Now, you do need to learn. I got an EMT. I got a real estate license. I did some other things to educate myself, but the formal education was not my path. So my point is, we all start the same. We all started in diapers. What is the catalyst for you wanting to succeed, and use that to propel your way into success? And if you focus on one thing and you continue doing it, you will succeed, is what I found. The reason people fail is they start and stop. and then they try something new and they start and stop. And then they, it's just identifying what you want out of life and mapping a goal between where you are now and what that goal is, and then reverse engineering that. Anyone can do that in any industry.
A big part of what you just said, you've talked about this a ton, Marlon. I think I've heard this from you talking about the GPS. We have to know where we are right now. We have to know if we want to get to Disney, what's the turn-by-turn directions from MapQuest or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
But a big thing you touch base on is we start and we stop. And a lot of us forget about this. When we start and stop, when we start again, you're starting back over at zero because you've lost that momentum. And a big quote I'd say for everybody is something I replay. Actually, I have it written on my mirror in my bathroom. It says, I can't lose if I don't quit. So there's going to be lumps and bruises. It's going to be awkward. It's going to suck at the very beginning, but you find somebody, you find a Bobby, you find a Marlon, you find a Caroline, or somebody who's where you want to be and they're on the right path. Like, because we don't know everything. We asked Bobby questions. No. We were asking Bobby a ton of questions last week, but we're hanging around more successful people. We're getting our campfire lit up. We actually learned how to light our own campfire with Bobby,
right.
But we're getting to do all these things with people who have more success than us, and we're copying off of them. And it's helping us find success and help more people. So I just really wanted to reiterate that. Know where you want to go, know where you're starting, and then don't leave that campfire. And you've probably talked about it a lot on your channel, but just to reiterate, what do you mean by, what does the campfire mean? What happens if we walk away from it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the campfire effect is effectively what I got to experience even last week when I was in Utah with Caroline, with Bobby. Campfire effect is, and the best way for me to explain it is I'll tell the story, because I learned this from a good buddy of ours, Cody Barton. And Cody was somebody that, just like Bobby, which is so interesting, you're going to see similarities here. At a young age, Cody decided he wanted more out of life. He wasn't satisfied with the status quo. There was an internal desire. Keep that word in your mind, desire. So there was a desire to have more out of life. And so Cody was invited to one of these MLM, the multi-level marketing meetups, where he was pitched a vision. He was sold a vision about how he can go out and create financial freedom. And so Cody gets fired up from this pitch. And at the end of the conversation, he goes to the front of the room and talks to the two presenters. And he says to them, they're young guys like him, but a little bit older, maybe about 28, 27 at the time. Cody's 18 or 19. And he says, I see it. You guys, you have the suits on. You've got the nice sports cars outside. I want what you want. I want what you have. How do I do it? How do I become successful? I want to be successful. What do I need to do? And these guys take their arm, they put it over Cody's shoulder and turn him around. They face him out to the crowd and they say to him, all right, I want you to look at all the people in the room. A majority of them are going to fail. Mm-hmm. Now, Cody's taken back a little bit because didn't you just say to everybody that they can all have financial freedom and that this can work for anybody? Doesn't matter who you are, you can make this happen. And they said, yeah, no, we said that. He said, are you scamming people? Like, no, listen, we're not scamming anybody, but you need to understand what just happened. Today, we came here and we showed everybody the vision. We presented them with an opportunity to improve their life, and people caught the vision. They bought the dream. But what is going to happen is people are going to take this fire that we gave them and they're going to sprint out into that world. And in that world, it's still a dark, cold, rainy place. I can't change that. And these people are going to have their fire, but the wind is beating down on it. The rain is pouring on it. And that fire is getting smaller and smaller until eventually it's just a flicker, and that flicker is just an ember, and that ember extinguishes. And then they're standing in the dark saying, I knew it wouldn't work. And he said, if you want to succeed, what you need to do is you need to constantly come back to the fire. You need to keep bringing your flame back, and you need to constantly reignite the flame, reignite your desire, constantly come around this energy so that you can stay motivated, you can stay on track. And so Cody listened to them. He took that advice, and he would return back to the meetings, back to the same group to be around those successful guys. And it was the same presentation most of the times, but he was getting reignited, re-excited, reinvigorated, and then going out into the world and taking action day after day, week after week. To this day, Cody's one of the few people I know that was ever able to create success in MLM, and he was able to hit his first million before he was 20 years old. And so I tell you guys this because that campfire, when he shared that with me, it twisted my brain and made me realize if I want to be successful, I need to be around, physically around people who are at the level I want to be. Last week, I was in Utah because it was an opportunity to spend more time with Caroline and to meet and spend time with Bobby, somebody, a man of value, a man of integrity, and a man who's been able to have success personally, professionally, and financially. And I want to constantly put myself around these people. I told Caroline when I got home, I was like, I've been fired up since getting back from Utah. because of being around the right people. And the interesting thing about campfire, and Bobby, I think you can attest to this, the way a fire works is a fire might be in the center of a room, but if I'm standing 40 feet away from it, how much ability does it have to warm me up? See, there's a physical proximity, that there's a closeness that you get from physically coming closer to. This is why we like to gather in person. We talk on the phones, we meet on Zoom, we see each other on Instagram and YouTube, but there's a different feeling that occurs when we get together. That's why I love what you guys did. You took your investors and you physically flew them out. You had them come to you in Utah to spend time together. And it was a totally different energy for all parties involved. This is the power of proximity. This is the power of the campfire.
It is. They say that you become the sum of the 5 people with whom you most associate with. And those logs, if you can picture that analog, all those logs sitting on the fire, they're generating heat from one another. And that's a great analogy, is to be around people. It's interesting. A lot of people don't have an entrepreneurial mindset. And it's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. It's hard to build a business. I mean, we took a business from an idea, vertical that I had never been into before in healthcare, and we grew that company. And it was fun. 8,000 client sites, after we finished and sold. And it's fascinating. You can learn anything in any business if you have the focus and the discipline. And again, you associate with those people. So that fire analog is a great thing to find people that are like-minded, that have the same mindset, and utilize that. And that's the benefit. Again, Caroline was coming out and I said, "Are you bringing Marlon? This will be fun." He does a lot of mindset stuff, and it is, the psychology of the mind is powerful. We really can. I joke with my wife all the time. I can do anything I put my mind to. She's like, "Can you take out the trash?" And my response is always, "I can do anything I put my mind to." And she'll say, "Well, then put your mind to taking out the garbage." And I'll smile and do it. But it is true. As we start to, our mental chatter, our ability to tell ourselves that we can accomplish these things, it is a good thing.
I would read the last thing I'll say here so we can keep it moving is just like, if you're watching this, I know we have 55 people on live right now, and there's some people watching this, like, who is in your campfire? And are they adding to your campfire, or are they, are they putting your fire out, or are they igniting it? And I think we talked about this, like, we don't want to hang around complainers. There's a difference between giving constructive criticism of like, hey, we talked about this, like, hey, I love you, and because I love you, I'm going to tell you this hard truth and get to the next level. But who's helping you add to your life, and who do you need to subtract so it can excel even faster? If you're watching this and you're kind of overwhelmed, or you don't have a campfire right now, how often are you doing? I know you have your Tuesday lives. Like, how can people connect with you? Because the biggest thing for me is I started making more money hanging around Marlon. And by hanging around Marlon, then I was able to connect with Bobby. So like, by proximity, we even talked about this. We went to a friend's birthday party Saturday night.
Yep.
And the craziest thing is I taught this guy how to door knock 2 years ago, and everybody around the campfire and people I didn't even know were like, David took me door knocking, and I started making money off of learning from David. So there's a crazy ripple effect that happens with everything. So my question is, for everybody in here who doesn't have that campfire, they don't know how to get started, or they might be overwhelmed. I know you've helped me, Marlon. How can we connect with you more, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So first off, thank you.
Yeah.
Because it is crazy to watch how the ripple effect does occur when you support one person, you build them up, and they go out to build others. And so that's something. And it's funny you mentioned David, because David's someone that I work with. He's a client of mine that I do coaching with, because what I do is I take entrepreneurs, typically 6-figure entrepreneurs. So not someone who's brand new, but people who have been in the game a little while, who, I like to say, if you have all the resources, but you haven't been able to produce the results, like you've bought the mentorship programs, you've read the books, you've paid for the courses, you've gone out and you started taking action, but you're still not producing results, and you can't figure out why. Typically, there's something going on. There's a mindset block. There's a self-image issue. There's limiting beliefs. And I love taking people and getting them unstuck. And so the best way to, if you're thinking that you're that person, that you've been stuck and you need help, you need support getting unstuck, you really need someone to sit down with you and give you support by figuring out where you are currently and then creating a roadmap to backwards engineer your success. The best way to reach out to me is to send me a message on Instagram, just like DM me the word coach, and we'll set up, I'll send you an application where you can apply to see where you're at, to see if you're a good fit. And if you are a good fit, we'll schedule a discovery call to have a conversation. So that's something that I do. This is not for everybody. I'm going to be straight up and clear about this. There is a financial, there's a price tag to this, right? This is an investment in yourself. There's money that you have to spend. There's time you have to spend. There's energy you have to spend. I mean, it's intense, and it really is not for the faint of heart. In fact, actually, before we even started this live, Bobby was saying, we're having this conversation offline, that entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. And, actually, I think we should talk about that a little bit right now, because we've been fortunate enough now to be around thousands of people who are in entrepreneurial communities. And not everybody is a good fit for these communities. Sometimes peer pressure gets them in, sometimes FOMO, or they're just experimenting. And the truth and the reality is it's not made for everybody, but the people that it is made for, they need support. And I like to find those people. But Bobby, can we talk about this? Like, when we're looking at entrepreneurship, who would you say entrepreneurship is for? Or in your experience, what have you found to be some of the characteristics of entrepreneurship, of entrepreneurs, that has helped you identify it within others and even within yourself?
So interesting question. And I want to dovetail a little bit. You're kind of like the Stuart Smalley of do you remember him? I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. Doggone it. People like me. Caroline's too young.
I think we're the same age, because I'm sitting. I'm like, that might be outside of my.
All the old folks will get that joke. But Marlon's very good at taking somebody in this entrepreneurial stage and taking them to the next level. I think that's what he's saying he brings to the table. And I want to take that campfire analog.
Is this our Stuart Smalley?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough.
People like me.
And doggone it, it's daily affirmation. It's self-affirmations. It's what you tell yourself. And that's what the advantage is going to be here. I want to take that campfire analogy, just do a little detour. A fire, we shared this, it can be a false sense of heat. When you're standing around that fire, you're super pumped, and you're with people like Caroline and Marlon, and everyone's, rah, rah, shishkumba. It's like the Walmart chant, before they start their shift, and everybody's happy and excited. Fire can be a false sense of heat, in that when you separate and you're in a cold winter environment like we were. I mean, we were in the snow. You find when you get away from that fire, you burn out very quickly, or you cool down very quickly. So what I was teaching the group in a wilderness survival situation, obviously build a fire and stay by the fire. But warmth comes from within. You've got to generate your own warmth. So that's what Marlon's saying. If you're not willing to, when you step away from the rah rah shishkumba, get out and hike and put in the energy and the effort to create your own warmth, that's what he's saying. This may not be for you. For somebody to go away from the fire and sit down in the cold snow and sit there and wait, your body temperature is going to drop. You are going to develop hypothermia. You're not putting in the effort on your own. So that campfire is good, but you've got to be able to generate your own heat in life and be able to, do things for yourself. This is not a passive. I hate that word, passive income. Nothing is passive in life. I mean, few people find it. I've got some buddies that do the set it and forget it with technology and sales, and they do make money in their sleep. Very rare. Most income is residual income. It's hard work. It's educating yourself as to what you need to do. And this is the entrepreneurial mindset, that you have to be able to think differently. You've got to be able to look at scenario and a situation. We did some live calls, people that I've never met. They said these individuals are in pre-foreclosure. And I get a little bit of an overview, like literally a 3-minute, here's the situation, go. And they patch them in on the call. I want to understand these people. What makes them tick? How did they get there? Asking them a lot of questions. You can see people that have a pattern of train wrecks, and you can see people who have a pattern of, I have a problem and I can figure my way out of this problem. Those are the type of people we're saying, hey, we make money by solving problems. Bottom line, that's how we are successful. And anybody that has ever made money on this earth has found a problem and solved the problem. So Marlon, that's what you're talking about, is the mindset to think that way. But a lot of people have it. They just don't realize it. It hasn't been unlocked. And it's not something I do, not something I'm interested in doing, but something, again, Marlon, that's his focus. That's what he'll do, is do a discovery call, understand who you are, what makes you tick, what's your situation, and what's your objective. And then reverse engineer that. Here's my goal. I hear people all the time. This is the best. I have a goal this year. It's 2025, January. We just set our goal and we're going to lose 25 pounds, Marlon. That's not a goal. The goal is I want to lose weight, but I'm going to implement a program that I'm going to get off my butt. If you are not getting off the couch, get off the couch. If you're walking, run. If you're running, add some resistance training into your schedule. That is more of a goal, is identifying, the losing 25 pounds is a byproduct of your effort. But setting that goal and never doing anything, buying a gym pass entitles you to nothing, right? You got to go in and put in the effort. So that's what guys like Marlon will help you do, is unlock that potential.
I love that, because it's funny that you say that, because one of the first thing I do when I work with people is we do two things, and they're two sides of the exact same coin, which is, of course, we're going to figure out what it is you actually want to accomplish, because it blows my mind how many people don't actually know what they want. Like, if you guys were listening, if you've been on since the beginning, earlier you heard Bobby talk about how he started off with a desire for wanting more in life. And so there was clearly something that he knew he wanted, whether it was new sneakers, whether it was to go on this trip, whether it was to buy a car. There was a clear vision in his mind of what he wanted to obtain. The amount of people I ask, what do you want? And it's the most vague answer. Well, I want more success. But what does that mean? I want to be in better shape. But what does that mean? I want to be happy. But what does that mean? It doesn't actually tell me what it is you want. But let's say you do know what you want. Let's say we've established, and you say to me, Marlon, I've had a clear goal. I wrote it down. I've read it on a card. I've known for the last 3 years what I want to desire, what I want to have. Then that's when we start to look at, well, who are you? What's your identity? And what are your behaviors? Because that's actually going to be more indicative of if you truly want something or not. Because if you tell me you want something, but your behaviors aren't in alignment with your desire, there's no way in hell you'll ever have it. And your behaviors are typically going to be in alignment, not typically, they're always going to be in alignment with your self-identity. See, identity and behavior are so closely connected that they're almost one and the same. You can't have one without the other. And this is why where most people try to change their behavior, but they don't change the identity, they don't change who they are, they don't change how they view themselves. The behavior change is only ever temporary. It's something they did, not something that they do. It's not something that they are. And so when we work together, this is what we've got to focus on. When you work on growing yourself, you need to work on identifying not just what do I want to have, but who do I need to become, and what sort of behaviors do I need to adopt on a day-to-day basis. I had this conversation with one of your guys' team members, Lindsay, where this morning we were actually having this conversation. And shout out to Lindsay. She's doing awesome. A phenomenal job. I mean, just absolutely awesome, absolutely crushes it. And she's been having some good success inside of her entrepreneurial journey, working with y'all, being a part of a strong campfire. But also the reason she's been having that success was because when I asked her what she wanted to accomplish, and I asked her, well, what needs to be true to make that happen? Her response was, well, I want to get to the place of making $10,000 per month consistently. I had her define, what does consistently mean? She said, consistently means I do it 4 months in a row. Awesome. So we have a very clear finish line, or a very clear milestone of there's no gray area. It's black and white. I know I've hit the finish line, or I've hit that milestone when I've made $10,000 4 months back to back to back to back. Cool. What needs to be true to make that happen? She said, well, in order for that to happen, I need to be consistently hitting my numbers. So we had metrics that were it was behavior, it was action that was able to be reversed. And she said, if I do these actions, it is inevitable. It would be nearly impossible for me to not achieve success, because these actions would mean that I am this person. Being this person would mean I do take these actions. This is the most critical thing. This is how people like Caroline, this is how people like Bobby, this is how people like myself, this is how we think and we perform. We look at what we want to accomplish and we backwards engineer what would need to be true of us, what would need to be true of our actions and our behaviors in order to get to that point.
I'd also just double down on what you said. What you measure grows. And if you're not paying attention to those things, like Bobby said, we're going to lose 25 pounds. But if you're just like, this is the goal, you never go and measure it. How much work have I put in to lose 25 pounds? The goal is 1 pound a week for so long. Oh, I lost 2 pounds this week. You have to measure those things. And then I'd say the biggest thing as well, coming back into the campfire, who's in your accountability group? And you're really good at holding people accountable, and you just so available. So for everybody on here, if your goal, we started this entire conversation on what did our parents didn't teach us this. I wish I knew this about investing. We invest in ourselves. What's the quote? You will never outperform the level of your personal development.
Yep. You'll never outperform and you'll never out earn your level of personal development. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And that's why I think we started off by saying like entrepreneurship, what I've discovered in these last several years is entrepreneurship is just personal development on steroids. Like it is personal. It's a Trojan horse of personal development.
But it's a mindset too. Again, that going back to that losing weight analogy, I want to lose weight. Okay. What are your behaviors? So you dissect, what are your behaviors right now? I watch a Hallmark every night and I eat a bag of chips. Okay. So what all we're doing, and this is what's fascinating when working with people, I don't care if you watch the Hallmark, just get rid of the chips and replace that with 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups.
Watch the literally Hallmark movie on the treadmill.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Watch it on the treadmill. I mean, isn't that fascinating? There's another idea. So while you're watching TV, continue watching, but I think our society, we just have a very lethargic, sloth-like society that wants this passive income. I want to sit there. I want to eat my bowl of ice cream or chips and watch the Hallmark, but I want this income coming in. And those two worlds, Marlon, you mentioned something. This and this inextricably connected, mean those behaviors are connected. They're interwoven into each other. And so again, you can have your Hallmark. I'm not saying you can't. You can have your bag of chips once a week, but the other 3-4 days you need to be on the bike. You need to be on the treadmill. You need to be, and with that, it's not a big compromise. It's just a little pivot. It's that flight that literally is 1 degree off, does not reach its destination. So it is constant little course corrections the entire trip. Planes don't fly from point A to point B in a direct straight line. There's lots of little corrections, but if they stayed that 1 degree off, by the time they hit their destination, they'd be hundreds of miles off. And that's what most people are doing. And I love that you offer the ability to reset that mindset and just pivot a little. Just those little course corrections will get you where you need to be, but it's thinking just a little different than you've thought before.
Yeah. And you just said it, right? So if you guys are listening, what you just mentioned with the plane, with that autopilot, if you will, a lot of people, we may not realize this. And I wish it was taught in school. In fact, I believe it should be taught in elementary school. If I had my way, when you learned about yourself and your body and you learned about your 5 senses, your hearing, taste, touch, smell, and sight, you would also learn about your inner mental faculties, about your self-image, and about this autopilot of yours that we all have that truly guide, and it guides our behavior and it guides the results that we get in life, that we are always going to get the results of who we believe ourselves to be. And this is where people get stuck with their earnings, right? With the weight, the sort of relationships. And I'm going to use a simple metaphor that people can relate to, where we all have that one friend who is in relationships with different people, but it's always the same person, if you know what I mean, right? Like it's the girl that dates the same kind of jerk of a guy over and over and over, that although she breaks up with him, she's in a new relationship in 2 days, and the new guy is pretty much a mirror image of the last 7 guys. And you're scratching your head like, why does she keep dating these terrible people? Well, internally, she has a self-image about herself and about what love is, about what a relationship is, about what is right and wrong. And so even though you might have that conversation with her intellectually and she says, well, I know I need to find a better person, she keeps going back to these same old people. It's because that autopilot of hers has already been programmed for whatever reason, from whatever life circumstances, and she's not even aware that the autopilot exists. So it never occurs to her that the autopilot needs to be reprogrammed. It's never occurred to her. It's like being in a Tesla that's self-driving and you're trying to figure out, why does it keep taking me to this location? And you had no clue that you can actually tap the settings and change the destination. That's what we do. All of us, right? We work on changing the destination. That's what I do. Like I work with people and I work on, hey, let's reprogram this autopilot. First, let's make you aware that you have an autopilot. And now that you're listening to me, hopefully you become aware that you have an autopilot. But then more importantly, let's do something about it. Let's actually shift and change the autopilot so that you start producing new results.
Yeah, I love that. I've got, and we don't need to cover it now, but I literally have 5 or 7 tips that we can give, up and coming entrepreneurs. If you haven't, you've been born, you've gotten through 10, 20, 30, 40 years, even 50 years of life. A lot of the inventions, a lot of things with these people that hit it big happen later in their life. So it is never too late to start. That's the first thing I would say. But we've got I've got several tips that we can give these entrepreneurs. One, power of compound interest. Most people don't understand that. Money grows exponentially when invested early. You guys were talking about this with crypto. Small, consistent investments, they turn into very large sums over time. That's the same with physicality. I've done several mountain bike races, road races. I failed on the first one. My kids were racing this morning. It was like 10 years ago. My attitude, my will to succeed, it was there. Jumped on the bike and got the whole shot because I ride motorcycles. So I get, the ergonomics and all the fun, got to the front of the line. I made it up probably a third of a mile, fourth of a mile, was gassed. I was on the side, about ready to throw up. And I remember walking my bike back, and the announcer said, "We have our first DNF." And she's like, "Seriously, that early?" And I'm like, "Ladies, I'm right here. I can hear you." I failed at that race because I didn't put in the time. Fast forward, you bike, you get on a bike, you get in the mountains. And in my old category, my, aged years, I did a 118-mile race last year, 11,000 vertical, took first in several, races for my age category, which is still good. My kids are smiling like, "Dad, you're old, not that hard to beat the guys in the wheelchair." But, for me, it was a win. And I look at the difference between the little gains practicing and where I am now. I can hang with most people, and you snowshoed with me and you've skied with me. And I like that higher level. But even though my mind was there, I was willing, my physicality wasn't. We have to do the little things every day. So start early and stay consistent, with investing. Another thing is avoid debt. Credit cards, get rid of them. That is one of the worst, compounding interest not in your favor. So investing isn't just for rich people. Anyone can do it. Real estate is a great way to do it, but don't expect to get rich quick. There's no schemes out there that are going to take you today and by next Thursday, you're going to be a multi-millionaire. It is consistency, and it is over time. And then understanding the taxes, that's a big thing. It's not how much you make, it's how much you retain. So there are some strategies with real estate to depreciate, cost segregation studies. Then they appreciate over time. People in those homes pay them down, and you create equity. So there's a lot of different things. It's money's a tool. It's never been the goal for me. It's a tool to do good things. And I've divided my time with family, church, and work. And that little ecosystem, a lot of my buddies get too caught up in the work, and then they make a ton of money. And it's just like, oh, I just lost my family. I don't have any friends. I'm 200 pounds overweight. You've got to have that balance in life, and then never stop learning. I don't care if it's a 10 or a 15-year-old. And I love that, Devin, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You can learn from anybody, read books, look for mentors who have successfully done that, follow them, talk with guys like, Marlon and gals like Caroline that know a little bit more than you do. And you can learn from anybody. I learned a lot from Caroline. It's one of the reasons we didn't have a formal agreement, and I invested in a lot of, deals with her. There's a level of trust that I have with her that I don't have with several people. And so you've got to find your tribe, find your people, and learn these little skills, and then learn from individuals. And most importantly, figure out who you want to be. So
I'm going to jump in here. So, because this is really important, because there's a lot of people that are new. How would you help somebody figure out who their tribe is? How do you, because I have a hard time with this. I know Marlon always gives me, I'm too trusting. I assume the best out of everybody. I'm like, well, this is what I would do. So someone else do the exact same thing for me. So when you guys are looking to learn from somebody, how do you sniff out the, it's too good to be true?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is one of the more difficult things nowadays with social media, because everybody is able to present as, everything is awesome. The grass is always green. Money's always rolling in. Bad days are for losers, but not for us. And it's just not the reality, right? Like, everyone makes mistakes. We're always constantly learning. That's why I love what Bobby just said about like staying in the position of always learning. And so when it comes to finding your right tribe, it's going to come into alignment with that last point that Bobby made here, which is figuring out the type of person you want to be. And so it's the ancient wisdom of know thyself. And so I believe before you start to hook up with other people, because there's a level of entanglement that happens, whether good or bad. When you get around other people, you naturally are going to start to pick up their traits, their mannerisms, their wisdom, their knowledge, their habits. And so before you start picking up other people's stuff, I think it's important to spend some time alone, to actually disconnect from others and figure out, what do you want for you? I like to say it like this. If you were on a deserted island by yourself for a month, what are the things that you would find out about yourself? What are some of the things that you might find interesting? Would you be into art? Would you be into music? Would you start going out into the forest and building things? Would you start planting? Would you start dreaming up different cities in your mind? What would come to you? Because as you start to discover the things that are for you, that are intrinsically motivating, that you intrinsically desire for no other reason except you want to, like, God put it on your heart, you put it on your mind to go and fulfill and see, then from there, it's going to start to give you direction towards the sort of people you should start seeking out and inviting into your life, because now you would be in alignment with you and you can start to attract the other people that are a part of your tribe. But most people don't know themselves well enough. And so they start seeking for internal validation externally. They start looking for their self-validation inside of other people. So oftentimes I find it's a matter of there's not enough self-reflection that occurs. So sit down, spend some time alone with yourself. And I'm not kidding. Like, I'm talking like, if you are someone that has not been alone in a long time, this weekend, take a day, take an entire 24 hours, disconnect from everyone, put your cell phone down, go in to your house, let the people around you know, like, hey, I'm not going to be talking to anyone for the next 24 hours, and sit there with a journal and allow yourself to be bored and allow yourself to self-soothe and allow yourself to go into your mind, into your own thoughts, and see what comes up for you. It's fascinating to me that people don't like spending time with themselves, and yet you think other people should want to spend time with you, but you don't want to spend time with you.
That's a bar.
You know, so and I'm curious, like, Bobby, how would you say, like, what's been something that you've been able to utilize to vet people out? Because, like, that's my first level. I have another thought on also what I do to really start to find people. You know, I know you used the analogy last week of, if you give someone $20, or use the story of the boy that gives the $20 bill to someone and the guy runs off with the $20 bill and the boy gets upset, and you're like, why be upset? Like, that person you just learned who that person was for the cost of $20. That's amazing. Like, that person was going to screw you over anyway. You now got them out of your life that much sooner.
Faster.
You know, so it's like, I don't believe in hiding who you are. I believe in knowing who you are and then exposing that to the world, so you can give the opportunity for the people who are part of your tribe to come in.
And
So, Bobby,
I'm a big believer. I was just saying, I'm a big believer in divine intervention. You know, people, I met Caroline, we're great friends. You know, Marlon, you're a friend of her, you're a friend of mine. I tend to be more on the trusting side as well, because of my belief system. I believe we are going to exit this life. And it's very interesting. I share this a lot. There is no U-Haul trailer attached to the hearse. We don't take any of it with us, but I'm a believer that we do take those relationships with us. So how we treat people, our integrity. Now, I have been wronged by people. People have been wronged by me. You know, again, their perception, but you do your best to make sure you're aligning with people. If I were to talk to somebody and say, what are your goals? You know, somebody new wanting to get into real estate and they say, I want to make a lot of money. I would probe a little bit. Tell me about that. What are you going to do with that money? And why money? What does money do for you? Money does not bring happiness. That is a news flash I want to share with everyone. It doesn't bring happiness. You'll find that you will wake up alone and frustrated, and you still have that personality and that pit in your stomach that you know, you had before you had money. It just makes you a bigger version of what you are now. If you're giving now, this is one of the things I challenge the group. Are you donating at, you know, just as an example, the soup kitchen or Big Brothers and Sisters? You know, are you doing things like that now? If you're not doing it now, you're not going to do it then. You know, there is the social media has created, and I don't like social media because of this, what it does to kids. They see the Hollywood, the glamour, the Ferraris, and I want the Ferrari. And it's just like, I don't have an issue with the Ferrari. What I have is an issue is what it represents. Does it build your self-esteem? Does driving that versus a minivan have an impact on your self-esteem? If it does, then I would suggest you buy a minivan and drive it for 5 years until that humility hits a place, you know, that you can make the money and earn the Ferrari and pay cash for it. And So it is hard to vet people, but I would look at going into business with somebody. You've got to have a track record. You've got to have referrals. You've got to have a lot of those things. Aligning with the group, I've met a lot of shiesty people in real estate. It brings out the best and the worst of people. So you can learn from anybody, but be very careful with your investments and make sure you have the proper paperwork set up before you wire money to anybody. Have the right legal counsel, attorneys, property. You know what you're doing. Is it a personal guarantee? I mean, just educate yourself before you write out a check and start, engaging with somebody there. But for the most part, again, I'm like Caroline. I'm going to believe and I'm going to trust in you until you give me a reason to say, I never want to do Caroline and I were just talking about this. We're not going to share names, but just had a recent experience with an individual that we've been working with for several months. And I don't like the way this individual does business. And I get to choose whether I want to continue a relationship there. There's givers and there's takers. And again, an adult gives more than they take. When it's a one-sided relationship in a marriage, in a family, in a business relationship, life is too short. I'll work with people as much as I can. And then when you realize it's an unequal relationship, time to move on.
I absolutely love that. Right. Like it's you want to be around people who are like you, at least in my opinion, right? Like I look for other people who are go-givers, who are actively trying to outgive the other person, because then that's a recipe for growth for everyone. It's a recipe for abundance for everybody. And one of the things, and this is what you all, like, if you're stepping into this world of entrepreneurship, the mindset, the paradigm shift that you need to have is you need to be willing to lose. You need to be willing to get hurt. I'm not telling you to go out there and say, I want to lose, I want to get hurt, but you have to be willing to put yourself on the line and take that risk. Because in my opinion, if you're not willing to lose, you don't deserve to win. You're not going to get the opportunity to win.
So you're telling us, Marlon, I can't be the guy that just scores touchdowns and never gets tackled.
Like that reality. I mean, you can if you only want to score one touchdown and then never play the game ever again. Because that's effectively what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, hey, like I'm pulling out because that's the only way to guarantee that you won't go down.
That is the mindset. You have people that want to do the boogie in the end zone, but don't ever want to get hit. Those guys they put in the time, they get drilled. A lot of these guys are on the meat squad for many, many years before they even start a game. And so I think understanding that life is hard. And when people say life is not fair, that's one thing that my kids do not say is that's not fair. And I would say, you know what? It is fair because it's not fair for everyone. And that's what makes it fair for everyone. Everybody's at a disadvantage. We all pooped our diapers when we started out. Hopefully we're not still pooping our diapers,
Yeah. And what's funny is, Bobby and Caroline, I want to ask you guys this because people, for example, they watch you guys go into business right now. Like Caroline, Bobby, you're impossible to find on social media because you don't exist. You're a ghost on social media. We're going to fix that.
I know. And I'm going to lean on you guys for changing that for me.
Yeah, because the world needs your value. You truly are a valuable person. And one of my favorite things in life is being able to spotlight people of value, people who I consider to be like the true artifact, like they're true. Like they're just authentic because the world is starved for authenticity, and to be able to say like, hey, look, this is an authentic place to put your attention for now until you build it up and develop it within yourself. So I want more people to know you exist. Sweet. And you and Caroline, you both go out into the marketplace and you buy properties, right? Like you buy, like, because I'm talking in terms of being willing to lose. When you go out, you have the mindset of we're going to buy deep. We're going to make our money in the buy. That's one of the first lessons you learn as an entrepreneur is you make your money in the buy. However, you also acknowledge that we don't have a crystal ball, and any investment we get into does have the potential to lose us money. It does have the potential to hurt us. And you accept that reality. You don't ignore it. You step in willingly, knowing that things may go south, but we're willing to take on that risk, and we trust in our own ability to figure it out, right? So do things ever go bad in your operation? Do problems ever happen?
There's always something that's going wrong. And it's actually, I was going to say this a moment ago. I don't know. I mentioned it when we were in Utah. There's a woman named Sarah Blakely, one of the first female billionaires. And Bobby, this made me think of you because you talked about how intentional you are with parenting. And I was like, you should probably write like just a 100-page handbook of being a parent. What it's like, and give it to them at the hospital because I like the way you talk about parenting. But Sarah Blakely, if you look her up, she created Spanx.
Thanks.
When she was a child, she said the story. When she'd get home from school, her dad would go around the kitchen table and he'd say, "Hey, what did you fail at today? And what did you fail at today?" And he'd celebrate the failures because it shows there's room for improvement. And he would encourage his kids to mess up because they know, like, okay, well, I can get better. And you got to remember, fail stands for first attempt in learning. And the faster
Great.
you fail, the faster you're going to learn and you're going to get better and you're going to excel and you can oh my gosh. I was the last one to light my fire when we were doing the Flint thing. I did get the one of the Flints second to last. Greg got it after me, but that was tough. And I thought, I watched Bobby light a fire in like 2 strokes of the Flint, and the rest of us were like, "Oh, this fire lighting thing is not as simple as it seems. This is actually a lot harder than we thought." So for everybody in here, getting around failure and understanding that's part of the game. It's just the name of the business. Coming back into one of our mentors, Pace mentioned this. He bought a fix and flip, or he did a fix and flip, threw it on the market, and the time it was on the market, somebody broke into their home, stole all the appliances, and caused about $10,000 worth of damage when it was like hitting the market. My parents, coming back into tying this into my parents, if that would have been my parents and they did a flip, they'd be like, "Well, this is why you don't get into flips, because somebody's going to steal from you. They're going to rip you off." And I remember him saying, "Well, cost doing business. Let's go buy another house. Let's go get another property and make more money." Because that's what's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to have really good wins, and sometimes you're going to have a loss and it's going to hurt. But you just keep going because that's the nature of the game. Would you say anything different, Bobby?
No, I agree with you. My attitude when something gets stolen, and we have had things stolen, my attitude is, you know what, somebody must have needed that more than we did. If a bike gets stolen, or you can stomp around, you choose your emotion, you choose your response, right? So I can stomp around and curse around my kids, and when I find that person, I'm going to pummel them, or you know what, they needed it, move on. So I think what we're talking about here in failure is calculated risk. It's taking your knowledge of say right and wrong and what to do and what not to, and your actions, and aligning those two and making sure you're approaching. Yes, there's risk in everything. Guess what? There is risk in me getting up, leaving the house, and driving my car. I could get T-boned by somebody. Is that going to prevent me from driving a car? No. Matter of fact, I love motorcycles and I love high speed. So I go to the track and I am free of policemen. I can go 100 miles an hour and they can't pull me over and give me a ticket. So it's finding that environment that you can do calculated risks. We are not suggesting go out there and buy a home and throwing 50, 100,000 at it and losing that and saying, "Oh, I learned such a good lesson. That was incredible."
Please get somebody before you buy anything. At least run it by us. Like message me. I've been replying to people that have been messaging me. Somebody was like, "I have a house is worth 330. They're asking 300." I said, "Oh, well, tell me why it's a deal." Well,
yeah. And I think that's the key. I think that's the key is there is a way to educate yourself with mindset. Looking at somebody stole my bike, I'm angry, or they must have needed it more than us. Guess what? I'm grateful I have the means to go buy 5 more bikes. I don't like to waste money, but I can go buy a new bike and I'm okay with that. It's a mindset, first of all. And then second, educating yourself so that calculated risk, it minimizes because we did have a property. It was funny, Caroline, this was impressive that I watched this from you. We had a property. We had the homeowners flew in to do their walkthrough. They flew in. I wish we could show the picture. And she sent me a picture of the leak in the house. It looked like a bomb went off. All the insulation was in the room. And I'm like, we just spent how much on that renovation? And Caroline was like, "Yeah, we'll just get it fixed. We got a guy." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" And it was interesting to watch how calm she was going through that. And we lost equity, right? We lost a little equity. So nobody's crying over spilt milk. We still made money on the deal. And again, it was our attitude. And again, I learned I'm a pretty chill person. It takes a lot, to get me riled. And unless we're climbing up a snow rock, Marlon, and I'm pushing you down so that I'm very competitive.
More like suplex time. He grabbed me and just did one of these.
Yeah, I wrestled. I'm sorry.
Here's the picture of the house.
Look at that. So This is the best meme right here. So you want to be a real estate investor?
This was
That is a
like
brand
7
new
days
floor.
before we were supposed to close on it. Our buyers flew in from California.
Oh.
We didn't even touch the plumbing. So this wasn't even anything that we touched. We actually didn't do any drywall work. This room, I think, was just painted and flooring was put down. I think if I go to the next photo here, you can see what it like. I'm also going to find the photo of the freaking leak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say too, it's funny because that house was beautiful. It was so ready. It was market ready, listed. And then that happened.
Here you go. This is what it looked like. This is what caused all that damage. Can you guys see this little leak right here?
Yeah. Look at that. That is that little leak. I mean, there's a whole white paper, a book written just on this little experience. But again, you handled that with poise. I handled it with poise. Inside my mind, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. But at the end of the day, it worked out. We made money. You move on to the next one. You do not get emotionally attached. It's when we get emotionally attached to something and react and respond. I mean, can you imagine as a child, if at the checkout counter, you could negotiate with your parents on the candy bar instead of stomping and throwing a fit? That was me. Tell you what, Dad, I get that candy bar, and guess what I'm going to do for you when we get home? I'm doing dishes for the next week, and that's the mindset that I had as a kid. You can get anything you want in life if you get people what they want. My dad may want me, cleaning the dog poop for a week, may want me cleaning out the tool shed, cooking dinner, whatever. But learn to look at life differently.
And you know what? This is a prime, and this comes back to the question Caroline asked earlier about how do you find your right tribe mates? And this is something I was sharing with Bobby, and I shared this with you, Caroline, that I do, is look for how do people respond in stressful situations. Because that's going to be a true indicator of who they actually are. Everybody can put up a front for a little while. Everyone can put on their best face. We all go on dates, and nobody shows up on a date farting and saying like, hey, I snore late at night. And like, no one says that on a date.
You wait till you get to know them.
Yeah. Like then they start to show you they're crazy. They let it out in little bits. And so during high stress situations, we can accelerate the process of them showing you their true colors. And something that I do is actually when I'm vetting a new person in my life, I like going on strenuous hikes. I take them on hikes that I know are a challenge to me, and I'm in great shape. And I like to see how they're going to respond to it, because at the end of the day, there's going on a hike. And this is what Bobby did to us. I think Bobby was testing us on the mountain.
Look at the side chat right now.
Yeah. Greg is like, bro. Because we did this with Greg, and Greg turned out, Greg's a great guy. We take him out onto the mountain. You beat him up because in their mind, here's what the reality is. No matter how pissed off they are, a part of themselves know I walked into this. I literally brought myself here. And now if I complain, the only person I can truly complain to is me. And so I like to see who starts complaining. Are you someone that internalizes and you accept the choices you made? Or are you going to start pointing the finger externally and saying, Caroline, you brought me here. Bobby, you did this to me. It's your fault. And so I like to see who's going to complain or not, because it's indicative of how they're going to behave in the future when inevitably it all hits the fan. Because at some point in your career, you keep playing this game long enough, something will hit the fan, and it's not going to end you, but it's going to be uncomfortable.
I agree. We had was interesting, an investor, all on the surface, everything was beautiful, religion, believes in Jesus, all the good, gives of the time. And it was interesting. There was a situation that I don't know if it was roid rage or what, but flipped out. And I was sitting there listening to him, and I listened to the rant for about 15 minutes, a string of F-bombs and everything. And the first thing I said was, hey, you know what, as a business professional and as a Christian, super unprofessional. Second is send me your wiring instructions. You're out. Wired him his money and just said, thanks for the ride. Life is too short. Life is way too short to deal with that type of behavior. And we've all seen that. We've all been that kid sometimes throwing fit. I was not a perfect child. If anything, I was the opposite, and caused my parents a lot of grief. And I think that has helped mold me into who I am, is a lot of these failures and a lot of these, situations. When you come from a family of 8 kids and you're the middle child, you are the deprived child. But I can either use that and say, woe is me, or be like, you know what, bring it life. Let's make this happen. And you make a choice. And I had very supportive parents that loved us through all of the trouble. That was the beauty. is we got in a lot of trouble, whether it be fights or, police involved. And I remember my mom flying around the corner one time and said, "Get in the back of the truck. The cops are coming." We were toilet papering a house. And so we got in the back of the truck and laid down, and the policeman drove by, and, I'm just like, I love that lady. She's the best. And that's the kind of support we have to have for one another. We're going to make mistakes. We are going to do stupid things. We just have to be, chill and, show the love.
Well, I know we're at an hour here, and I have a little bit more time. I know that we have a few more calls lined up for the day, but I want us to bring this full circle for everybody. Because the point of this, guys, one, I think most of us are on this live right now, and we're watching as we're watching the recording because you want to make a change. We want to change our mindset. We want to get to the next level. We want to make more money, and we want to leave a lasting impact in our community. So my question for you, Marlon, I know. Well, let me tell you this. I've made more money. I've made more money hanging around Marlon and seeing what he's done and how he's been able to focus. And he always says that he's boring. I think you're one of the most interesting people in the world because you can just sit still and do things. Like I had a phone call with Bobby before. I was like, I got to go outside so I can talk to you so I can really pay attention because if I sit still, I fidget too much. But you have Alexis Morgan, who's now, I just saw she raised $30 million. She's raised $30 million. Is she 21?
She's just turned 21, yeah.
Just turned 21. She got into coaching with you. She has raised $30 million. She's making tens of thousands of dollars.
A little over $80,000 a month right now.
80,000. All right. She's making over $80,000 a month at 21. I have the impact that I've been able to have and the ripple effect and the people that I've connected with has grown exponentially. I don't know how many other testimonials that you have, but from seeing people focus on their mindset, what would you say the return is in their personal life and their business life?
I mean, it's funny you say that with the personal side. It's been a game changer. We've seen results where I have guys who are like, my marriage is getting better as a result of me working on me. My relationship, I was getting ready to end a partnership with a business partnership. And I realized it wasn't my partner. It was actually me. I was blaming the partner. And they came to realize it was themselves. I've watched guys come to me and in their mind, they thought they were supposed to be doing one thing. We sit down, we dive deep. And I realized the game plan they're on, this is exactly what happened with Alexis, based on what she wanted to accomplish. I was like, you're messed up. You're lined up all wrong. You're working on the wrong things right now. You're focused on the wrong things. We need to change the direction. So I've seen 10X in finances. It's hard to measure with the change that's happened for people personally, because that's emotional. How do I tell you what it costs for you and your wife to have the fire reignited in your marriage? That's on you to determine what the value is. But what I like to tell people is when we sit down, we're going to have a conversation about what it is that you want to accomplish. And I make all of my clients, the first conversation we have, they have to tell me what needs to happen in order for them to consider working with me a success, right? Because I'm not going to tell you what you're going to accomplish. You're going to tell me what you want, and then I'm going to give you a roadmap to get there, and we're going to implement that roadmap together. So if people are interested, if you need help with that, if you need help with transforming, again, if you feel stuck and you've tried literally everything, if you're on my YouTube, there's a link in my description. It's going to be for you to fill out an application. I'm going to tell you this right now. Again, I turn people away. This is not for everybody. All right. If you are someone that is not ready to fully commit, if you're going to be lukewarm in the process, this isn't for you. You need to be in or you're out. It's one or the other. But if you're been on the ropes and you're like, I need help, I need support, I need somebody that's been where I want to be and that can help me get there, fill in the application, and then we'll set up a discovery call. We'll have a conversation and see if what I do is a good fit for you.
I like that. That's the best way to get a hold of you.
Yep. The best way to get a hold of me is click on the link in my YouTube, or go to my Instagram and DM me on Instagram. DM me the word coach and we'll get a conversation started. Now, I do want to say, first off, Caroline, Bobby, thank you guys for being here. This conversation was absolutely amazing. I mean, we can keep this going for an hour. And I want to say to the audience, congratulations to you guys for being here, because a part of changing your mindset, a part of changing your paradigm, a part of changing the results in your life is changing the inputs that are coming in. So right now, as you've been listening to us, if you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a replay, you're currently conditioning your mind to be in alignment with the new sort of life. And that's critical. That's important. It doesn't help for you to say you want something, but then to go and condition yourself and bring in the junk food of information, the junk food of knowledge. So give yourself a pat on the back for being here. And we'll be back again next Monday. We're going to be doing these live on Mondays at 12 o'clock Arizona time, which is the right time zone. The rest of the world, I don't know what you guys are up to still with daylight savings, but we'll be back here again next Monday. Bobby, Caroline, any last words you guys want to share?
I just want to say, this was a lot of fun. Oh, we got Laura on here. That's sweet. I haven't met Laura yet.
Laura? We love Laura.
We love Laura. She's the best.
I'd love to meet her. She's a friend of yours. She's a friend of mine. No, I was just looking at the side chat, and I see like Melissa, Greg, Aaron, Lindsay, Ryan Schroep. We skied with him. I met him through you, Samsoni. All these people. As you get out and network and you become part of these organizations, there are people that think like you think, or that think like you want to think. And it's been fun to do that. This is not your typical, this is not a W-2, but as you hang out with these people like Ryan, I think we're going to go skiing tomorrow. Met them through Caroline and Marlon, and you see what they're doing. And it can't help but excite you and motivate you to look at your life different. Sometimes we get caught in that rut. So look at, if I were to give some advice, look at your life different. What could you do different? If you've already achieved who you want to become, awesome. You don't need any of this. But if you want to change, or you want to do like that plane, little course corrections so that you can hit a different and more exciting destination, these are the people. These are my people. This is the fun. And how I want to live my life. This is what I want to do so that I can leave an impact. And I think Marlon and Caroline are both go-givers. They do the same thing. So it's been kind of fun. And I appreciate you guys, the association and the affiliation with you. So thank you.
The only thing I was going to say to just bring this home for everybody, hang around, you know what? And maybe you don't align with us. That's fine. Go find the campfire that you do align with. But the biggest thing I'd say, and I think this is where my ADD pays off, find people who can give you the information direct and to the point. It's not just they're taking you around in circles forever. Bobby and I were talking about this. So many people, I keep having people ask me, how do I figure out what equity is on a home? We're in the process, and just from mentors we've learned from, find who can give you the information immediately and you take actionable steps. So if you're done watching this, reach out to any of us. We're here to help you out. Marlon is the mindset guide because I know him. I've made more money. I've made better relationships. I focus on my health more. I know it can happen for you too. So Marlon, thank you for taking some time to invite us over here. Bobby, thank you for carving out time away from your bike riding and skiing from Ryan. And maybe we'll see you next week then.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. See you,
guys,
everybody.
Be good.